A report by the West Indies argues that money from the ICC be allocated more equitably. Credit AFP. The West Indies are leading a push for radical changes to protect the competitiveness of international cricket, the Daily Telegraph can reveal. A new report by the West Indies advocates money from the International Cricket Council being allocated more equitably between countries, broadcasting rights being pooled, away teams receiving a share of home broadcasting rights for series and major global events being shared between more countries. The proposals are formally on the agenda of the ICC annual conference in Dublin, which begins on Thursday. There has never been more money in the sport, West Indies chief executive Johnny Grave told the Daily Telegraph. The game must adopt more equitable revenue sharing to ensure that cricket is sustainable in all countries, that the game grows throughout the world, and that there is a competitive balance among teams to generate interest among fans. The report also claims that the structure of international cricket is loaded in favor of wealthier nations. It warns that if steps are not taken to help the sport in other countries, nations from beyond Australia, England and India, the Big Three, will become weaker, matches will lose competitive balance and the appeal of international cricket will dwindle. The gap between the Big Three countries and emerging nations is in danger of widening. Credit Reuters. Such concerns have grown because of the burgeoning wealth gap between the Big Three and other nations and the ascent of 2020 leagues, where many players can earn far more than in international cricket. The West Indies have regularly fielded depleted teams in international cricket, due to clashes with domestic T20 competitions, while South Africa have suffered a series of unwelcome retirements in recent years, including those of Morne Morkel, Kyle Abbott and AB de Villiers. One of the key recommendations is for the ICC's revenue and events to be shared more equally. On current projections, India will receive £306 million from the ICC over the 2016-23 period, England £105 million, the West Indies and several other test countries £97 million, and the 92 associate nations only £147 million between them. Similarly, in that same period, all 6 major men's events are being held exclusively in England, India or Australia. The report advocates that future world events be shared around different full members, and that every second World 2020 tournament should be held in an emerging nation. It also suggests cash from ICC events should be pooled and distributed among all members, and that the events themselves should be increased in size to help the sport grow in emerging nations. South Africa's Morne Morkel retired from international cricket. Credit Reuters. There are also calls for the Indian Premier League to do more to compensate full members during the tournament. The IPL currently pays release fees to boards for signing players, but the report says that the tournament should compensate full members who have agreed not to schedule any international cricket during the 2-month IPL season. It is the only T20 league granted such a window. Effectively, the report appeals to the largest nations on the grounds of self-interest, suggesting that, if matches between the Big Three and other nations become more predictable, then viewing figures will fall. The overall revenue generated by Australia, England and India is growing at a faster pace than 4 other countries. All 3 boards recently secured lucrative new broadcasting deals, so the financial gap between these 3 nations and the rest will become more pronounced in the years ahead. This enables the Big Three countries to fund far greater investment in cricket and player development, infrastructure and administration. For example, the value of England's new broadcasting contract, beginning in 2020, is £220 million a year, compared to £12 million a year for the West Indies broadcasting contract. How the IPL changed cricket effectively. This means that if England and the West Indies each host each other for series of equal length, at home and away, then England will earn almost 20 times more revenue over the 2 series. This is not conducive to producing optimum outcomes for the global game and ensuring the competitive balance within world cricket, the report claims. It argues that, because of the value of what the largest countries earn from domestic TV rights, dividing up ICC revenue more equitably would make a real difference to other countries but have a negligible effect on nations like England and India, for whom ICC revenue is only a small share of the total income. Until 2001, revenue was shared between the home board and visiting boards. Until 2014, the Future Tours program stipulated that each test country would play at least one series of tests and ODIs against each other every 10 years. Without this principle of reciprocity, the report argues, there is inherent instability in the system, with countries outside the Big Three having a worrying over-dependence on spikes in income for these nations, especially India, touring. Emerging nations rely on touring from countries such as India. Credit Getty Images. The report advocates that the overseas broadcasting rights for all international series between test nations be pooled among members, and sold on a collective basis. Touring teams would also receive 20% of the value of the domestic rights. The structural inequalities that the report exposes are highlighted by how Scotland, despite beating England in a one-day international this month, will play no more internationals this summer due to a lack of funds. This year, Scotland receive only £1.32 million from the ICC. Through a redistribution of global revenues, the ICC could more than double associate funding, which would no doubt help to ensure their improved competitiveness at elite level, as well as grow the interest in cricket within the countries. Grave added.